I am actually so tired of Tartaria. I mean, I pop onto YouTube. I'm like, all right, what do we do for tonight's stream? Maybe we do some maybe we do something fun, some ghost videos. There's that Mad Vlad Skinwalker video that I wanted to go take another look at. And we will be taking a look at both of those things. Really quick, I do want to go bother Stanley. So give me one moment. Is everything working properly? Ah, cool. It is working properly. We're going to go over here.
Sheen in 7/8.
We're going to go bother Stanley.
Hamburger.
Angelo Darkside, Nikki G.
What should we tell Stanley?
Hamburger.
My origins turn off. Oh, it is.
What do we tell him?
There we go.
Whoever has 1240, whoever has.
This is the guy I've been doing some of my
Gen 3, please.
some of those zombie streams with.
Never mind.
All right.
Wait, are we actually doing a one box challenge?
No.
You could.
Should I comment? Should I comment through my own? I'll comment through my own.
It's true.
I mean,
I'll comment through my own
really wanna go
my
no
own
south.
side of things instead of the lore lodge.
Yeah, that's what I'm
What
trying to
is
say.
the
Like,
point of the map?
who wants to do that? That's what I'm trying to say.
What's the point of the map then? Literally have.
Oh, help me!
Bro.
Oh, he went down again.
No, I got you. You got the.
All right, what's your one box weapon?
We'll see.
You got the chaos.
Yo,
We'll see if he
John,
responds.
Man of movies, welcome to the stream. John, how are
I
you?
got the.
Welcome to
I got the
stream.
ballista at the box, guys.
Ooh, Scar H. We're set for life.
There's no way you got the list out of box. I don't think
It's
you got it out of
it's
a
not
dig
box
site.
weapon, yeah.
I was gonna say, there's no way it's a box.
Who got the DSR?
See, this is
Nah, I have the ballista.
I want to play these old
Hey,
maps
welcome to- hey,
with all the
Stanley,
cool
have
things.
you heard of Tartaria? You mean Terraria? What?
I wish it
Tartaria.
was.
Scar goaded.
Oh,
Hi,
I mean, the other
SWK,
day on
welcome.
Nuketown, Parker got the Olympia out of the box.
not
It's true.
That's not possible, but sure.
Yes, it
Deciding
is.
what you can do.
Uh-huh.
I literally watched him get it.
There we go.
You guys are having a groovy day. It is now.
I got the MG08.
He's very good at checking his chat while he games. I'm kind of impressed, but then again, it is zombies.
Find the red dig site.
It's a little bit more predictable than
I don't- I don't
than
even
my
know.
go-tos.
It's right here. Stand
But-
right here till the robot.
There we go. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be dragging. I'm gonna be dragging the absolute hell out of Tartaria. But yeah, I wanted to start with this one because, one of the things that drives me the most crazy about Tartaria is their insistence upon using the term Aryan in its outdated ethnographic context. This is the term we used to use for Indo-European. I'm not sure precisely when we stopped doing that, but hang on. Yeah, I'm not sure precisely when it is that we stopped using the term Aryan. I guess I can look it up. When did we stop using Aryan? Okay, so it basically was in the 20th century. And we moved over towards Indo-European and Indo-Iranian, things like that. Because what this term essentially means is it's a linguistic grouping deriving from a culture. The culture itself was the corded ware culture, the Amnaya culture. I have a book on it somewhere that is titled The Horse, the Wheel, and Language, I believe. I haven't had a chance to read through it all the way yet. I'm very curious to. But this culture is the original Europeans. Europeans are not the native indigenous peoples of Europe necessarily. Basically the Europeans are newer to, as far as we currently understand things, the Europeans are newer to Europe than Native Americans to America. So, I mean, this is a group of people who predates the Jewish entry into, basically the whole story of Abraham and Isaac. That takes place around 2000, between 2500 and 2000 BC. So, Europeans got to Europe half a millennium earlier than the Jews got to Israel, if that gives you any context for when all of these things are happening. Prior to that, we had the pre-Indo-European population of the continent. These still exist in a very small number of people. of peoples. We have the Basques, who are likely pre-Indo-European. There's a couple of other very small, very isolated groups in Europe that still speak pre-Indo-European languages, and probably the one you would know of the best would be the Etruscans, who were the ruling Italic group. Italic probably isn't even the best term for them, but they were the ruling group in the Italian peninsula prior to Rome. Those were Indo-European, or pre-Indo-European. We don't know a ton about them. We know that they were not related to the Latins. Linguistically, they were probably there first. The Latins were not entirely sure where they came from, how they developed, but they were not pre-Indo-European. They probably had some aspects of their culture that were pre-Indo-European, but it's hard to say for sure. It's also complicated because the Etruscans used a lot of the same cultural elements that the Greeks did, but not identical in the way that the Romans were near identical to the Greeks. Also, everybody has this idea that, like, oh, the Roman pantheon was just the Greek pantheon, but changed it a little bit. It was more complicated than that. The Romans did not have their own gods in the sense that a lot of other cultures, in the sense that we're taught. Yes, they had their own gods, but they were also happy to absorb other people's gods into their own pantheon. They did not have a system of our gods are real and your gods are fake. They had a system of our gods are our gods and your gods are your gods, but we're going to take your gods and make them our gods too. That's how we end up with guys like Sol Invicta. But yeah, so the Celts, Celtiberians, and Franks, the Celtiberians are an iffy one. The Celtiberians may be a group of pre-Indo-European peoples who adopted Indo-European language and culture after it became Celtic, but the rise of Celtic culture is separated from the Yamnaya migration by about 1,500 years, because we start to see the Celtic culture, the earliest versions of it, those crop up during the late Copper Age, early Bronze Age. And then we have the Celts as we know them around, I guess probably at the earliest you would say 1500 BC. But yeah, for a long time we used the term Aryan, and this was basically applying to everybody who came from that Yamnaya cultural group, which does include some of the peoples of northern India, Persia, up through the Caucasus, and then over. So there were basically two groups that came out. We had one that went west and one that went south from the area north of from the Caucasus region. This is why we're called Caucasians. White people are Caucasians because they come from the Yamnaya culture who migrated out of the Caucasus. This is gonna be, this is gonna hurt me, especially because I'm really curious what the esoteric religion of the Aryan Magi, or Magi, or however you want to pronounce that word, was. Wrestler Jimmy Snuka and the death of his wife. Yeah, probably, I'm interested. I might not do it on stream, but we'll see. So yeah, we're gonna see where this goes, because at its core, what Tartaria is Nazism, clearly, because every single time we look at Tartarian stuff, it all feeds back into neo-Nazism. Every single time, without fail, whenever I look into Tartaria, we end up at Holocaust denial, we end up at whites were the original Jews, we end up at all sorts of weird stuff, and yeah, this is I guess where we're going tonight. Also, Pumpkin Bear, Banana Foster French toast is possibly one of my favorite foods, whether we're talking breakfast, dessert, whatever. Also, thank you, XI. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but thank you. I appreciate that you guys love me. But yeah, let's see where we go. This stream's going to go until about 9 p.m. tonight because it's a reaction stream. I've decided that I'm going to move the streams around. We'll do reaction on Thursday, and until the album is completed, we're going to be doing music on Tuesday with Gaming Friday. We're going to see how it goes. I'm doing good. I've been doing the Yuba County 5 research all week. Wendigoon basically threatened me. He was like, do the video or else. So I'm doing the video. In case anybody gets angry next Friday, when you see a Yuba County 5 video from the Lore Lodge, we were instructed to do that by Wendigoon. So we're not ripping him off. We're not trying to ride the train. I have not watched his Yuba County 5 video because I don't want it to influence ours. That said, oh my god, is that case weird. Anyway, here we go.
35 the Shah of Iran issued a proclamation to the
Oh,
League
boy.
of... In 1935, the Shah of Iran issued a proclamation to the League of Nations that, henceforth, the country of Persia would be called Iran, the name reaching back in time to the country's ancient roots and the Sanskrit phrase Aryanam Veja, or home of the Aryans.
So the reason we referred to Iran as Persia for so long is because they referred to themselves as Farsa or Farsi. And Greek didn't do a great job of translating that set of sounds into the Greek language. So it became Persia. That's basically where that comes from. I'm not sure where... I'm not sure they ever referred to themselves as the Aryans. I'm actually going to look that one up. Did the Persians refer to themselves as Aryan? All right, so they use the term Arya. Gotcha. There we go. Typically in ancient times, they were referred to by the ruling dynasty. So you had the Achaemenids, the Medes, things like that. I believe the Medes were the time of Darius. I believe the Achaemenids were the time of Alexander? I don't know. That portion of the history is a little bit iffy for me, but here we go.
In 1936, Germany declared Iran as the second Aryan nation and exempt from the Nuremberg laws. Germany bestowed their seal of racial purity on the Iranian kingdom. The Nuremberg laws that had made anti-Semitism the law of the land were amended, which included Persian Jews. Iranians formally adjudicated in 1936 were to be considered as Aryan as any full-blooded German.
Did he mean that it was adjudicated? He has to have meant that it was adjudicated, right?
In fact, in 1936, Hitler's cabinet issued a Nazi directive that exempted Iranian Jews from wearing the Yellow Star of David.
Why would you say Hitler's cabinet issued a Nazi directive? Those are synonymous.
Hitler personally promised that if he defeated the Soviet Union, he would return all of the Persian land taken by Russians during the 19th and 20th centuries.
All right.
In 1939, Germany provided Iran with the so-called...
Dude talks so slow. Why is this in 720? Why can it not get high? Why do every single one of these channels lack any sort of quality whatsoever?
German Scientific Library. The library contained over 7,500 books selected to, quote, convince Iranian readers of the kinship between the National Socialist Reich and the Aryan culture of Iran.
Oh boy.
What was at the root of Germany's close historic ties to Iran, and why?
I do have to say,
what was at
this one's a stretch. This is such a stretch. This art probably has no connection to Nazi Germany, and the swastika has been present in cultures all over the world. We have examples of Native Americans using the swastika, and we can say for certain, we can say for damn sure that those guys were absolutely not, under any circumstances, familiar with German Nazism.
the root of Germany's close historic ties to Iran, and why?
I can't remember the exact circumstances of the removal of the Shah off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and look at it.
Were they thought by the Anunnaki to be descended from ancient Aryans. In his 1896 book called The Swastika, the earliest known symbol and its migrations, Thomas Wilson, curator of the Department of Prehistoric Anthropology in the U.S. National Museum, wrote, quote, an Aryan symbol used by the Aryan peoples before their dispersion through Asia and Europe. This is a fair subject for inquiry and might serve as an
That background music is familiar. That's, from dusk to dawn. It's Aerosmith. What's the song? That is Aerosmith. Yeah, it's Dream On by Aerosmith. Why is he using Dream On by Aerosmith in the background here? What? Like, what? Let's see, when Iranians actually have more in common with Canaanites than Germans. Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here. The very funny part of this is that the Persians, the Medes, were actually the people who came in, conquered Babylon. I want to make sure this is the Medes first. Let's see. Okay, wait. Who was Cyrus an Achaemenid? Ancient Iranian people. Okay, so it was the Medes. Who was Cyrus? Okay. So it was the Medes and then the Achaemenids. So the irony is that in the Bible, it's recorded that the Medes, the Medes, this is how they refer to the Persians, but Cyrus and Darius are actually the ones who came into Babylon, encountered the Jews for the first time ever. They had never met Jews before, and they went, you know what? It's pretty screwed up that the Babylonians took you guys from your homeland. We're going to send you back there if you would like to go, and we're going to give you a large degree of autonomy because we respect your people. I'm not kidding. That is the account in Daniel. The Aryans, the Persians, those guys came in and they said, "Hey, we kind of like these Jews. Let's give them autonomy. They just have to be part of the empire. That's it." And that is what they did. It's actually probably in here. Let's see. Neo-Babylonian Empire. We're going to look up, we're going to type in the word Jew here. Yep, in which he authorized and encouraged the return of the Jewish people to what had been the kingdom of Judah. He is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible and left a lasting legacy on Judaism due to his role in facilitating the return to Zion, a migratory event in which the Jews returned to the land of Israel following Cyrus' establishment of Yehud Medinata, and subsequently rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem, which had been destroyed by the Babylonians. Like, the Bible says that Cyrus was appointed by God to return the Jewish people to Israel. That is who we're dealing with here. Like, Yehud Medinata, what is this? Okay, yeah, it's an autonomous administrative province in the Achaemenid Persian Empire. He basically reestablished the kingdom of Judah as a satrapy. And that is who we're dealing with when they say this shit.
Explanation how, as a sacred symbol, the swastika might have been carried to the different people and countries in which we now find it by the splitting up of the Aryan peoples and their migrations and establishment in the various parts of Europe.
It was used by many southwestern tribes, most notably the Navajo. You want to explain to me how the Aryans got from the Caucasus over to the southwestern United States in 1500 AD? It's just like... let's see, what's the oldest swastika? 12,000 years ago. Do you know when the Indo-European culture came to be? It was 3,000 years ago that they migrated. Like, good lord. Mammoth bone. It was, the oldest one was discovered in Ukraine. Oldest swastika we have, discovered in Ukraine. That means what they're arguing is that the swastika 12,000 years ago somehow managed to make its way all the way across Siberia and into the New World. If the swastika originated in Ukraine. Originated. Now, it could be an Indo-European symbol. That's entirely possible. Don't get me wrong. We independently invented the bow all over the planet, but you can't just make the argument that the swastika traveled all over the world and that it was originally an Aryan symbol, and that somehow means that every group that used a swastika... I'm not saying it's impossible for the symbol to travel. I'm saying that the likelihood that it originated with the Aryan people and then traveled with the Aryan people would suggest that there are Aryans on literally every continent except for Antarctica, and that they've been there for 12,000 years.
But who were these Aryan people? Where did they come from? And what exactly was the meaning behind
Did he just
who
film
were these
himself
Aryan
getting out of a
people?
car?
Where did they come from? And what exactly was the meaning behind the symbol?
Why can't they walk normally? Why do all of these people...
Aryan
Look at
people.
this guy.
Where did they
He
come
looks like a
from?
robot.
And what exactly was the meaning behind the symbol itself?
Yeah, I've got to be really careful with the music. That's part of the problem. And that's what drives me nuts about people who put this stuff in their videos. Like, he's not even doing this right. Because he's not going to be making money. Also, I win every single one of these disputes. It's just annoying when they happen. Why are we walking along a lakeside? What is this?
What exactly was the meaning behind the symbol itself? Come from? And what exactly was an establishment in the various parts of Europe? But who were these Aryan people? Where did they come from? And what exactly was the meaning behind the symbol itself?
Okay, so this starts at 2:40. This segment of him walking starts at 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the video. I'm just muting it to not get a copyright claim, but it's on 2 times speed right now. Is he talking? Still not talking. Still not talking.
In the religion of the...
That was a full 50 seconds of him standing in front of what appears to be a man-made lake with Dream On an acoustic guitar playing in the background. I mean, come on, man. I almost wonder if they do this with the music so that people can't make money off of reaction streams to their videos.
The Aryan Magi of ancient Iran. Zervan is both the sun god and the god of time and space.
Okay, hang on.
Ancient Iran. Zervan is both the sun god and the god of time and space.
Now we gotta go and check that. Zervan. Okay. So it's a form of Zoroastrianism. In which the divinity Zervan is a first principle, primordial creator deity who engendered equal but opposite twins, Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. I believe... Yeah, so Ahura Mazda is the creator deity in Zoroastrianism. I mean... Let's see. Zoroaster felt that he was he stated the source of all goodness was the Ahura, worthy of the highest worship. He further stated that Ahura Mazda created spirits known as Yazadas to aid him. What were devas again? Basically their version of demons. These bad deities were created by Angra Mainyu. Something you'll notice about Zoroastrianism that I find very interesting is that it has a lot of parallels to Judaism, but it only dates to the 600s. It might be older than that, but it does only date to the 600s, which makes you wonder if Zoroaster may be the Iranian equivalent of a Jewish figure as well. Like, this may be the same figure, given different names. There's a lot of this interplay in the Middle East between all of these religions. But I believe that I believe that he's actually the creator being and that there isn't a primordial being who creates him. But I just gotta find it really quick. Where's Zoroastrianism? Okay. Yeah, possible roots dating back to the 2nd millennium. Enters history around the middle of the 6th century BCE, which, by the way, is during the period of the Babylonian captivity and around the time that the Persians come in and conquer Babylon and meet the Jews, which is possibly why why Zoroastrianism sounds so much like Yahweh and Satan fighting it out. Or possibly Michael and Satan fighting it out. So let's see. Where is the... Let's go to the overview, theology. Yeah. One universal, transcendent, all good, and self-caused supreme creator deity, Ahura Mazda. So he's not even using Zoroastrianism. He's using a specific brand of Zoroastrianism called Zervanism, which it says here teaches that there was a... Here we go. Where'd it go? Yeah, so this version teaches that Zervan predated Ahura Mazda, but I believe there is no... Yeah, here we go. So the first time Zervanism really makes its way into any sort of importance appears to be during the Sassanid period. Like, it's not the original version of it.
Neither good or evil, but completely neutral,
Wait.
and the god of time and space. Neither good or evil, but completely neutral, the primordial...
I do love how he says an ancient Iranian religion, as if this isn't one of the latest forms of it.
keeper of balance, neutrality, and in charge of the flow of time throughout all of existence. Zervan's true form is absolutely
It's monotheistic in the sense that monotheism is such a bad title for any religion. There's almost no religions that are genuinely monotheistic. Because theism means the belief in deities. So monotheism is the belief in one deity, but depending on how you define the word deity, Christianity is not monotheistic. Christianity is the worship of the God of the creation of the universe. The God Yahweh, the God Adonai, the Most High, El Elyon. Within Christianity and within Judaism, there are what in other religions might be referred to as minor deities that we refer to as angels. If you go back through it, the term angel is not really, it's very broad. There are different classifications, there are different roles. It's essentially a job that is performed. So there are this heavenly host, this divine council that God has of other divine beings that are not creators. Which is why if you look at Zoroastrianism, I find it so interesting, because in their version of events, you have Ahura Mazda, who is the creator being, the creator of all things of the universe, and he creates beneath himself a series of lesser beings who are not human, but are also not creative. They don't have the creative power. These are the Yazatas. And then there's this other being who can't create, he can only warp and twist. It's very similar to Lord of the Rings, the idea of Eru Ilúvatar and Morgoth. And in Christianity, the idea of God and Satan, same as in Judaism. So...
comprehensible to any mortal, but is sometimes depicted as Father Time.
So my point in saying that is that Christianity is monotheistic in the sense that it believes that there is one all-powerful being without equal. And that's who we worship. We don't worship angels, but we do acknowledge their existence. Polytheism is where you pray, is essentially where you pray to multiple deities. It's defined essentially as how many of these things you worship. Christians and Jews and Muslims only worship one God. There are other gods in the Christian and Jewish religion, gods being a very loose term. They're just not worshipped, and they're not considered to be creative or powerful. Well, they're considered to be powerful, but they're not considered to be our parentage, you know?
An old man with a long silver beard.
New Weird Bible is coming this month.
Zervan is the androgynous parent to equal but opposite twins, Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu.
I love how he is not noted once in this that this is much later than the original Zoroastrianism. I mean, the Sassanid Empire is, let's see. Yeah, 224 AD. This is post-Christian. Even the Parthian Empire is 247 BC to 224 AD. So we're looking at late here.
Also called Ahriman. Ahura Mazda is the sky god of the ancient Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism, where Ahura means Lord and Mazda means wisdom.
See, here, listen to that.
Of Zoroastrianism. Ahura Mazda is the sky god of the ancient Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism.
No, Ahura Mazda is the creator god of ancient Zoroastrianism. He is not the sky god. He is the sky god, but that's not his primary role, even a little bit. Do they describe Zervan? Mistaken identity. Do we have twin brother doctrine? Let's see. Genuine Iranian and Zoroastrian in that it sought to clarify the enigma of the twin spirits that Zoroaster left unsolved. As the priesthood sought to explain it, they must have had a parent who must have existed before them. The priesthood settled on Zervan, the hypostasis of infinite time, as being the only absolute from whom the twins could proceed. Good Lord. Where is he described this way? Description of Zorvan. Chief Persian deity. Okay, so here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Britannica says that Zervan was the chief Persian deity before the advent of Zoroastrianism. The most common image of Zervan depicts a winged, lion-headed deity encircled by a serpent representing the motion of the sun. So now we're dealing with two different things. Let's go find Zervan. Not Zervanism, we want Zervan. History and development. Origins remain debated. Developed out of Zoroastrianism as a result of the liberalization of the late Achaemenid era form of the faith. Another view proposes that Zervan existed as a pre-Zoroastrian divinity that was incorporated into Zoroastrianism. Third view is that it's the product of contact between Zoroastrianism and Babylonian Akkadian religions. That would make a ton of sense, given the time period. So infinite time was a deity established in the Sassanid era, but we don't see it before the 220s AD. Earliest evidence of the cult of Zervan is from 370 BC. See, Eudemus describes a sect of the Medes that considered space/time to be the primordial father of light and darkness. All right. So this still puts us within the Zoroastrian period. Which would mean that at that point there was an idea that these two beings proceeded from time itself. But that's still really iffy. What else do we have here? But it looks like this was perhaps a split even then. All right, there is no hint of any worship of Zervan in any of the texts of the Avesta, even though the texts as they exist today are the result of Sassanid-era redaction. Damn, this is rough. Okay, Kellen, the official data, said, I thought Mazda went zoom zoom. Yes, clearly. And Cakes said for $4.99, off-topic potential lodge video on John Lang, police cover-up, they might have even killed themselves. I've heard of that one. Yes, we can discuss it. But yeah, it seems to me like Zervan here is kind of the same concept as the Demiurge, or perhaps not even the Demiurge, but something even higher than that. Gnosticism has a nasty way of weaseling its way into everything.
where Aurora means Lord and Mazda means wisdom. Ahriman is the destructive or evil spirit in the Zoroastrian religion, which is locked in an ongoing struggle with Aurora Mazda, which lasts for 12,000 years. When at the end, the evil
This is creating a weird optical illusion where it looks like he's turning around, but he's not moving at all. Also, just like weird image. Robert?
creation is destroyed. Zervan developed into the Hellenistic Ion, the Alexandrian god of eternity, who was at the head of the divine hierarchy in Mithraism.
Whoa. Okay. Hang on. No evidence of distinctly Zervanite rituals or practices have been discovered. Okay. Alright. Heterodox interpretation of Zarathustra's Gathas. I mean, to me, this does sound... I would be remiss if I did not mention how much this does sound like them adopting the doctrine of Yahweh, Michael, and Satan. But... let's see. Did Zervanism make its... Did Zervan... Let's say, was Zervan adopted by Hellenism? It may well be that the Zervanite cosmogony was an adaptation of an antecedent Hellenic Chronos cosmogony that portrayed time as the father of time. So basically what this is saying is that Zervan could have entered the religion due to Greek influence rather than the other way around. This is hilarious. Let's see. Helen has not been conclusively established. Wow. Ion. God. All right, what do we have here? One story of Ion is told in the tragedy of Ion by Euripides. Euripides lived in the 5th century BC. Oh my God, it gets better. The earliest extant mention we have of Zervanism comes from the 4th century BC, and Ion comes from much earlier. All right, let's see. Illegitimate child of Croisa. I mean, he's a descendant of Prometheus. Which Helen is this? Not to be confused with Helen of Troy. All right, hang on.
Alexandrian god. Zervan developed into the Hellenistic Ion.
Okay, so Zervan does not appear until the 4th century. Ion dates at least to the 5th. And this dumb motherfucker is out here just saying shit. I mean, okay, here we go. Wait, the earliest mentions of Zervan appear in tablets dated to about the 13th and 12th centuries BC. That does not necessarily mean we're dealing with the same deity. Known as a god of growth, maturity, and decay. Keep in mind, none of those are creationism. Zervan appeared under two aspects, limitless time and the time of long dominion. The latter emerges from infinite time and lasts for 12,000 years and returns to it. Zervan was originally associated with three other deities, Vayu, Thravashtar, and Atar. Okay, yeah, so this is just not... The Zervan he's talking about comes from Zoroastrianism. The Zervan that may have made its way into Greek religion, if it did at all, comes from pre-Zoroastrian mythology. So this is another situation where we're just using the same name for two different beings. And I mean, to be clear here, The idea that Zervan would have become Ion during this time period is super strange. Because Greece wasn't under Persian control. Oh boy. Oh boy.
The Alexandrian god of eternity, who was at the head of the
He's just... What was he the god of? Is he even a god? Okay, he's the illegitimate child of an Athenian princess and a king. Ah, okay, so he was part god in his role as god attached to Poseidon. Okay. Whew, boy. Okay. All right. So what's his mythology? He's the founder of the Ionian people. Later, Xuthus was informed by an oracle that the first person he met when leaving the oracle would be his son, and this person was Ion. He interpreted it to mean that he had fathered Ion, when in fact Apollo was giving him Ion as an adoptive son. All right, so he is the child of Apollo and a human woman. Apollo asks Hermes, so he's a demigod, he's not a god. All right, what does Britannica say about Ion? Let's say Ion in mythology. Okay, it's just not even in here. I mean, it's just like... Also, these are all just insane claims. All right. What else do we have here? In other accounts, he's the founder of Helike, which is an ancient city in Achaea. He was the son of Xuthus, who was a prince. Okay, so in one version, he's a demigod. In the other versions, he's just a man and has no connection to Zervan at all.
The divine hierarchy in Mithraism, regulating the revolution of the stars, and often depicted as a nude male figure with a lion's head, with a serpent coiled 6 times around his body, which was also covered with zodiacal signs and the emblems of the seasons. Lord of the 4 elements, he ruled signs, serpent, stars, and often depicted as a nude male figure with a lion's head, with a serpent coiled 6 times around his body, which was also covered with zodiacal signs and the emblems of the seasons. Lord of the 4 elements, he rules over 4 winds.
Wait, that's not what I... Actually, hang on. That's not what I wanted to do.
Who was at the head of the divine hierarchy in Mithraism, regulating the revolution of the stars.
All right, wait a second. All right, mysteries of the Persians. Iconography. All right, so the lion-headed figure is from Mithraism. His body is a naked man. The name of the figure is conjectured to be Arimanius, Latinized form of Ahriman. Wait, okay, hang on. Is this the ion they're talking about? Ah, this is the ion they're talking about. He was talking about a completely different ion. This is incredible. This is why you should probably put more information into your stuff. Okay, so here's what we've got here. Some scholars identify the Lion Man as Ion or Zervan or Cronus or Kronos, while others assert that it is a version of the Zoroastrian Angra Mainyu. Oh boy. So, what's his deal? What is his deal? He is a god of the cyclic ages and the cycle of the year and the zodiac, Hellenistic deity associated with time. This kind of the future is a returning version of so he's cyclical time. Contrasts with the empirical, linear, progressive, and historical time that Kronos represented. This sounds a lot more like Celtic than it does Zoroastrian, but iconography and symbolism. What's his... Where are these... What time are these dated to? Some people identify him with Adonis. Serapis. When do we first hear about him? It's way in the AD period. I mean, if we're talking into, like, the Roman era, then that's just syncretism. But, alright, okay, so what... Whew, okay, let's go back here.
Zervan developed into the Hellenistic Ion, the Alexandrian god of eternity, who was at the head of the divine hierarchy in Mithraism.
Okay. Does he have anything... okay. Now we're maybe getting somewhere. Okay, so now we're into Gnosticism. He is typically in the company of an Earth Mother Goddess. Okay. Mithraic mysteries. This is Mithraism. Comparable belief systems, Christianity. Iconography, rituals and worship. Catechism, degrees of initiation. So Ion is solely mentioned as possibly being a figure in a statue. No exact alright. Okay. What do we got? What else we got here? Yeah, so basically, we're not even sure who this dude is, and it may or may not even be Zervan. When did Ion come to be? Mythology, Ion, deity. Identify with Dionysus, but there are no references to Dionysus' Ion before the Christian era. I mean, let's see. Earliest mention of the deity Ion. Okay. So Ion, from what this is saying, may go back as far as Homer, in which case it's not Persian. I mean, it's just wild.
regulating the revolution of the stars, and often depicted as a nude male figure with a lion's head, with a serpent coiled 6 times around his body, which was also covered with zodiacal signs and the emblems of the seasons.
So this is, scholars have not agreed that this is Zervan or Ion, and it seems most likely that it's a depiction of Angra Mainyu, based on the consensus.
Lord of the 4 elements, he rules over 4 winds, or 4 directions, and the 4 seasons, which are sometimes also represented by 4 seasonal solar deities depicted in the 4 corners of his icons, or
And Zervan is one of those.
symbolized by his 4 wings. Although they were historically considered Zoroastrian priests, the Magi themselves were not part of the mainstream Zoroastrian religion, but were adepts of an initiatory sect of the Mithraic mysteries, based on the cult of the rising sun god Mithra. In Mystery
Man, this dude has no concept of time. I mean, Mithraism is late. Let's see. Yeah, were popular among the Roman imperial army from the 1st to 4th century AD. Like, Mithra, the name of an old pre-Zoroastrian... This is the problem with Tartarian people. They do not grasp the fact that deities were recycled over and over and over again. So you had names of ancient deities. Somebody like Rome would come in, they would modify that deity, keep the name, and you'd end up with something that really did not date back as far as it appears to have. So it's a form of Mithra. What do we have here? Commonly known as Mer or Mithras among the Romans. Ancient Iranian deity of covenants, light, oath, justice, and the sun. Who would, of course, this is the wild part. Mithras, I believe, is the chief deity in Mithraism. Who is the chief deity of... I just want to check and make sure. Yep. I mean, it's just like... Appears in the historical record in the 1st century AD. What about Mithra himself? We just want Mithra. Okay, so late 4th century. I mean, this sounds like something that the Romans encountered while they were in Persia fighting wars.
You sound like something the Romans encountered while they were in Persia fighting wars.
Thank you. Let's see. In scripture, not mentioned by name. Not mentioned by name. One of the 3 judges. As a god of contract, Mithra is undeceivable, infallible, eternally watchful, and never resting. Protector of cattle. So definitely not what they're describing here.
school religions, the sun or fire worship, are metaphors and should not be taken literally. They are symbolic, with 7 grades of initiation, which are mirrored in the...
To answer the question, White Trash Panda, I had way too much caffeine today. As for Whispering Tingles, how much do I need to pay you to get you to read The Egg by Andy Weir? What is The Egg? Come here. Oh my gosh. Okay, you want a hug? Hi.
Hello. Hello, I missed you.
Oh, how was work? I missed you too. How was work?
It was actually fine.
Would you relax?
She wants to love you.
Of course she does.
Love you.
Love you too. All right. The Egg. Andy Weir. What is it?
Archie, do not taunt her with the ball.
Oh, it's not that long.
Aiden, your dog's being mean.
Okay. What's he doing?
He's taunting her with the ball.
Well, that's not very nice of him. Archie, stop taunting her. Bad.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like this feels familiar. Like, I feel like I've either heard this read, or I've read it myself. Yeah, I feel like I've definitely heard this read, or something based on this read. I don't have a specific number.
Seven chakras of the human body that are illuminated through sacred tantric rituals that enable the adept to bypass the ego and attain higher states of consciousness where they can gain insight by subjectively interacting with the divine, collective unconscious, or their own higher self.
Bro, we just got through the fact that you mixed and matched like 8 different religions just because they had similar names and concepts.
Attaining a trance-like Gnostic state where they can transcend time and allegedly perform acts of divination, clairvoyance, and other forms of mediumship. Of course, the secret rituals of the Mithraic cult sometimes involved the consumption of psychoactive substances like psilocybin mushrooms, coupled with various inner alchemical techniques that prolonged, heightened, and transmuted the orgasm to facilitate the bioelectromagnetic energy required to induce astral manipulation or magic, a term derived from the word magi.
Yeah, anytime you hear somebody use that many really long and complicated words, they are lying to you. There's like one circumstance under which somebody would say that many complex words and have it actually mean something, and it's the writing of a scientific paper. You absolutely do not need to use those words to explain any of this. And the only reason you would is to try and prevent people from actually understanding what you're saying. It is a tactic used for the sole purpose of confusing people.
This brings us to the Greek magic.
Because in order to understand this, you then have to go and you have to research like 80 different words. He didn't have to say any of it. He could have just said the words. He could have explained what they mean, basically. And he didn't. You know why he didn't? It's not because it's expedient. Anytime I use a word or a concept that I think people might be unfamiliar with in a video, I go and I explain what it means right then and there.
Heightened and transmuted the orgasm to facilitate the bioelectromagnetic energy required to induce astral manipulation or magic.
Okay, hang on.
Involved shit. Of course, the secret rituals of the Mithraic cult sometimes involved the consumption of psychoactive substances.
All right. Rituals and worship. Mithraeum, degrees of initiation. I will say a lot of this sounds vaguely like Freemasonry. Not like the weird sex stuff, but the idea that you're not permitted to be initiated into them until you show yourself to be holy and steadfast. I mean, from what I can see here, there's nothing about word orgasm sure ain't in there. Neither is the word tantric. Neither is the word sex. Neither is intercourse. Yeah, so it sounds like he's just making shit up. Did the cult of Mithras involve the ritual sex, I guess? It's male exclusive, so not that kind. Okay, so... Alright, although inspired by the Iranian worship of the Zoroastrian divinity Mithra, who is a Yazada, clearly not who he's describing this person to be. Okay, in tradition... Did it even have priests? Did Mithra have priests? This is the Latin version of Mithraism, which does not seem to have had a professional clergy, according to Tertullian. I mean, where is he getting any of this? Did Iranian Mithraism involve hallucinogenics? Okay, all right, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. In the Armenian tradition, Mithras was believed to have shut himself in a cave from which he emerged once a year, born anew. Introduced initiates to the mysteries in natural caves, according to Porphyry, 3rd century Neoplatonic philosopher. Cave temples were created in the image of the world cave that Mithras had created. All right, I mean, the caves thing sounds, if it's Neoplatonic, sounds like Platonism, not Mithraism, but it's fine. So it's saying that they would use hallucinogenic drugs, but it doesn't seem to say anything about mushrooms. Let's see. I didn't want to bookmark it. I mean, it's just like I'm finding nothing. Nothing at all. Let's see.
What?
Nothing, I just heard a slurp.
Sorry, I was eating.
Wait, what's... All right, so yeah, this is just not going anywhere. He's also just combining so many different things. Like, we've got Indian, we've got Aryan, we've got some Semitic, we've got some Indo-European. There's just a ton of different religions being mixed and matched here with no connective tissue at all.
Like psilocybin mushrooms, coupled with various inner alchemical
Do... mushrooms grow in Iran? Where's it grow? Habitat. Well, Iran sure as hell isn't on this map. Because seems that these things basically only grow in Europe and the west coast of North America. I really don't understand why people just say things. That's toxic mushrooms. Okay. It does, in fact, grow in urban areas, but it seems like that's probably because it's been brought there. And it's on the eastern side of Iran. What is that sound?
The ball.
Oh my god.
Techniques that prolonged, heightened, and transmuted the. This brings us to the Greek god Kronos, which
Okay.
means time, and was known as Saturn in ancient Rome. In antiquity,
I do think Saturn and Kronos are related. Where's the name and symbol? Roman god of wealth and agriculture. I do believe he's associated with time. Yes, so he is also a god of time, but he is primarily, I believe he originated as a god of agriculture. Greek equivalent Kronos. Was Kronos also a god of agriculture? Now, stop adding bookmarks. Ella, can you stop, please?
It's just playing.
I know, but it's like she's right under my chair.
I'll move, show me. Come on.
Okay, so nowhere in the Kronos article does it say anything about agriculture. Which is weird. Farm? In his capacity as a farmer god. Okay, so he was a harvest god, maybe? Ah, god of the harvest. There we go. All right, cool. So Saturn and Kronos can be connected. That's fair.
three-dimensional space and time was represented as a cube with 12 edges, symbolically synonymous with the primordial black sun, Saturn, and was known as Saturn in ancient Rome. In antiquity, three-dimensional space and time was represented as a cube with 12 edges, symbolically synonymous with the primordial black sun.
Huh?
12 three-dimensional was known as Saturn in ancient Rome. In antiquity, three-dimensional space and time was represented as a cube with 12 edges, symbolically synonymous with the primordial black sun, Saturn, Kronos, and
I'm pretty sure this is original to Nazism. Yeah, you can't just call anything you want primordial. Did the Greeks conceive of what time? Oh, okay, I see what he's saying. The idea that everything boiled down to cubes. Basically early atomic theory. But yeah, the black sun is original to the Nazis. There's oh yeah, right. One of the Ukrainian National Guard units used to use it up until they realized that probably wasn't going to be good. Yeah, here we go. During the Russian invasion of Ukraine, NATO tweeted a photo of a female Ukrainian soldier for International Women's Day. The soldier wore a symbol on her uniform. It didn't appear to be the black sun. It was the black sun. And then they took it down when they realized they could not verify it as official, when in reality it was like, we forgot to hide the fact that Ukraine has a legitimate Nazi problem. That doesn't make what Russia is doing right, but it also means that everybody who's like, Ukraine is a jewel of democracy and free of corruption. No. Ukraine is slightly less bad than Russia. But slightly less bad is better than, so that's why we're on their side.
and Zervan, which speaks to the esoteric black cube symbolism in some Abrahamic faiths,
I am very confident that the Kaaba is not related to what he's suggesting.
whose Kabbalistic origins predates Judaism and Islam, Abrahamic and Zervan, which speaks to the esoteric sun with 12 edges, symbolically synonymous with the primordial black sun Saturn, Kronos, and Zervan, which speaks to the esoteric black cube symbolism in some Abrahamic faiths, whose Kabbalistic origins predates Judaism and Islam and can be traced back to the ancient Magi.
Whoa! You don't get to just drop that as if it's not a completely out-of-pocket statement. What does that even mean? All right, when do we actually have Kabbalistic works from? Was this written by Kabbalists? Traditions, Jewish and non-Jewish Kabbalah. How old is Kabbalah? Okay, cool. So, medieval. Literally fucking medieval. Good lord, man. Yeah, sure. And Freemasonry actually goes back to ancient Egypt. This guy literally reads books and questions nothing.
In Greek mythology, the solar
He literally just said Jewish mysticism predates Judaism. You are correct.
deity was represented in 4 stages, in alignment with the 4 seasons, where in summertime he was known as Helios, when the sun in alignment. In Greek mythology, the solar deity was represented in 4 stages, in alignment with the 4 seasons, where in summertime he was known as Helios, when the sun was at its peak, with the days at their longest during the summer solstice. At the time of harvest, as the climate became colder and plants started to die, the sun was represented by Saturn.
No. No. Helios was the sun god. The term Helios means sun. Helios was the sun god. And then later I think it's Apollo. Like, oh my god, is he basing this upon fucking Sol Invictus? A deity that didn't exist in Rome until fucking the 3rd century AD? This dumb fucker.
Considered the nocturnal or black sun, ushering in the transition to autumn.
Okay, yeah, sure. Sure. All right. That where is he even? Where does this come from?
Which, after the winter solstice, Pluto would rule, also known as Hades, the god of the dead and the king of the underworld, who also plays a prominent role in the Eleusinian mysteries, which I covered in a prior video, where Persephone symbolically dies when she's crowned queen of the underworld and then is reborn.
Wait, hang
This
on.
symbolic role known as Hades, which, after the winter solstice, Pluto would rule, also known as Hades, the god of
Where is this coming from? Okay, so in 104 BC, A single person issued a coin depicting Saturn driving a 4-horse chariot. A vehicle associated with rulers, triumphing generals, and sun gods. Is that where... Nope. Here's one from University of Barcelona. Oh, okay. So the Babylonians referred to the planet Saturn as the sun. Sometimes. What about night? What do we look at that? Saturn as the son of night. What about light? All right, so this part cites Genesis, which is clearly not a Greek text. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. Okay, writing in 1905, Franz Cumont traced the linkage of Saturn and the sun to another folk etymology, starting from the common Greco-Roman understanding that Kronos, or Saturn, equaled the Syro-Phoenician god El. Okay. Sure. Huh? Okay, so El was identified as Kronos in a number of classical sources. All right. The similarity of the latter's name to Helios would have suggested an affinity between Saturn and the sun. No. All right, so basically this is all coming from the early 20th century and is by no means modern scholarship consensus. Good God, man.
Of the dead and the king of the underworld, who also plays a prominent role in the Eleusinian mysteries, which I covered in a prior video, where Persephone symbolically dies when she's crowned queen of the underworld and then is reborn. This period is followed by Zeus as the sun god in spring, also known as Jupiter, the king of the gods, coinciding with Easter and the time of resurrection, when vegetation and crops. Zeus as the crowned queen of the underworld and then is reborn. This period is followed by Zeus as the sun god in spring.
Did the Romans have multiple sun gods? Okay, look. They only had Sol Invictus. It was long thought that Rome actually had two different consecutive sun gods. The first, Sol Indiges, was thought to have been an unimportant, disappearing altogether at an early period. Only the late Empire scholars argued did the solar cult reappear with the arrival in Rome of the Syrian Sol Invictus. Perhaps under the influence of the Mithraic mysteries, publications from the mid-1990s have challenged the notion of two different sun gods in Rome, pointing to the abundant evidence for the continuity of the cult of Sol and the lack of clear differentiation, either in name or depiction, between the early and late Roman sun god. Okay, so what this likely means is, based on how the Romans do things, is that they had a sun god, and then that sun god was syncretized with Sol Invictus. Because we do get the introduction of a bit of a sun god later on. I mean, this is still up for debate. Okay, and Virgil is the grandfather of Latinus, son of Sol's daughter Kirch. Let's see, in Rome, Sol had an old temple in the Circus Maximus. and this temple remained unimportant in the first 3 centuries. Okay, so basically what we're seeing is that it's basically Helios. But the Canaanite equivalent is not El. Let's look at Saturn again. Nope, I want the god. All right. Yeah, so they don't give a Canaanite equivalent at all.
Also known as Jupiter, the king of the gods, coinciding with Easter and the time of resurrection,
Oh, good God, man. Easter is not connected to paganism.
when vegetation and crops start to grow again and the days start
Like, Easter is not at all connected to paganism. It's purely Jewish and Christian. It's a continuation of Passover.
to get longer and warmer, heading back into summer, repeating the endless cycle of renewal and rebirth.
When you go deep into Greek mythology, you find that Saturn is a father of Jupiter and many other gods. It is symbolized with a scythe or cycle, and it is also called Kronos, the god of time and death, because astrologically, Saturn is related with the ray of death or destruction. When we investigate our root race, the Aryan race, we know that the first sub-race of this Aryan race flourished in Tibet, and then the second in India, in China, and the third in Egypt, Persia.
Okay, so ancient Egyptians were absolutely not Aryan. No. And neither were the Mesopotamians. I mean, Sumerian, Akkadian. All right, language family, Afro-Asiatic. Language family, language isolate. So neither of these are Aryan languages.
Babylon. When we investigate the fourth, then we discover the Greek-Roman civilization. And of course, between these two races or sub-races, we
Archie, come here.
I'm coming to victim and they start screaming. Oh, they're
discover the emerging of Judaism and Christianity.
Hang on, what did
And
you
of
just
course,
say?
between these two races or sub-races, we discover the emerging of Judaism and Christianity.
Nope. Nope. This is I need you guys to understand that none of this lines up with the scholarship. Not a single bit of it is supported by any real evidence. This is people going, "Oh, would you look at all these things that at face value seem kind of similar? Must be a connection there." No. Absolutely not.
Yeah, you heard the man.
You have to prove it.
So these Diodorus Siculus state that Iao is the highest of all the gods. Indeed, Iao is Saturn. The seasons of the year, according to this theologian, Diodorus Siculus, state that Zeus governs spring, Helios
All right, when did he live? 1st century BC.
the sun, Helios governs summer, and Iao autumn or fall, while Hades, the god of hell, which is also called Pluto, governs winter.
Where does this come from? This is all from Diodorus? Did Diodorus Siculus write that Saturn was the sun in winter? Okay, is all of this related to the fucking star? Okay, likely Indo-European. Greek solar imagery begins with the gods Helios and Eos, who are brother and sister, and who become in the day and night cycle the day and the evening. Baal, Ra. Okay. Diodorus Siculus reported that the Chaldeans called Kronos by the name Helios, or sun, and he explained this because Saturn was the most conspicuous of the planets. What is all of this in here? Is this his identification with other gods? Sometimes conflated in classical literature with Zeus. Absolute master of the universe, who could even hold power over the Moirai, the goddesses of fate. Helios is Zeus in his material form that one can interact with, and that's why Zeus owns the year. Hades. Connected in some degree with Hades, dedicatory inscription from Smyrna describes a 1st or 2nd century sanctuary to God himself as the most exalted of a group of 6 deities. Okay, so it looks like what he's doing is taking syncretism and boiling it down into rather absurdly specific points. It doesn't look like Saturn was at any point identified as being the sun. Did the Greek sun god change with the seasons? Nope. Like,
Remember that Saturn is called also Kronos, which is related with time. And time works, of course, through the sexual energy. In other words, we enter into the circle of time through sex.
The swastika therefore represents the solar wheel, or the sun, in its 4 seasonal aspects, perpetually renewed in an endless cycle of birth, death, and resurrection.
uh-huh.
Symbolic of the solar cycle of time in an astrotheological context, and spiritual immortality in an esoteric or occult context, where in the mystery school religions, the sun represents God and therefore light, the only light, the universal light, an omnipresent symbol of divine luminosity, the light within each of us.
Oh, okay, and now he's gonna go feed some ducks.
Is also found in the figure of the eternal light and endless time. Zervan's influence is also found in the figure of the Buddha Amitabha. The name
We're only 12 minutes in, and here's the problem. He does this thing that most of the jackass grifters in this space do, of throwing a whole bunch of words at the wall, explaining none of it, and then continuing on with it as if anything he just said made sense. It didn't. We kind of just fact-checked it point by point.
Closely related to eternal light and endless time, Zervan's influence is also found
There we
in
go. Yeah, see? We already checked. Zervan does not match his description of Zervan at all. He combined Zervan with like 8 other different deities. It's just ridiculous.
the figure of the Buddha, Amitabha. The name Amitabha translates to infinite light, who in very ancient times may have been based on a monk named Dharmakara, who in some versions is described as a former Aryan king, as even
Sure, of course he is.
Gautama Buddha himself was Aryan nobility, described as having blue eyes and commonly associated with the Swastika. In very Amitabha time, Zervan's influence is also found in the figure of the Buddha, Amitabha. The name Amitabha translates to infinite light, who in very ancient times may have been based on a monk named Dharmakara, who in some versions is described as a former Aryan king, as even Gautama Buddha himself was Aryan nobility, Aryan based on a monk, as even Gautama Buddha himself was Aryan nobility.
Are we really gonna take the fact that he was described as having blue eyes to mean he was definitely Aryan nobility? Alright. Siddhartha Gautama. Okay. Shikaya clan. This is the 6th century. Where are the Shikayas? Ancient Eastern Sub-Himalayan ethnicity. Etymology. Origin. Mixed origin of Indo-Aryan and Munda descent, with the former group being a minority.
Described as having blue eyes and commonly associated with the swastika symbol, which predates Buddhism itself, and in Tibet was also revered by the earlier Bon religion, which according to Madame Helena Blavatsky, inherited.
Madame Helena Blavatsky says that everything was imparted to her by ascended masters. It's her entire theology, if you're even going to call it that, is it was revealed to me in a dream. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding about theosophy. That is literally what theosophy is. It was revealed to me in a dream.
Its tradition of magic from the ancient Aryans.
I'm sure she did say that. It doesn't mean she had any clue what the fuck she was talking about.
Uncovered by the German National Socialist expedition to Tibet in 1939, an ancient swastika-bearing Buddhist sculpture known as the Iron Man turns out to have been carved from a meteorite that fell to Earth around 10 to 15,000 years ago, the time period when Atlantis was allegedly destroyed.
Okay, hang on. All right, back up.
10 to 15,000 years ago, the time period when Atlantis was allegedly destroyed during a cataclysm.
What does that have to do with anything at all?
Featuring a swastika Atlantis that fell to Buddhist sculpture known as the Iron Man turns out to have been carved from a meteorite that fell to Earth around 10 to 15,000 years ago, the time period when Atlantis was allegedly destroyed during a cataclysm.
He's not claiming that it was carved 15,000 years ago when the article says right there 1,000 years old, right?
Featuring a swastika prominently displayed on its chest, the statue's phenotype appears to be bearded with Caucasian features and is dressed in Scythian attire. Appears to be bearded with Caucasian features.
Do those look like Caucasian eyes to you guys? Do those look like Caucasian ears to you guys? Hell, even his mouth doesn't look Caucasian.
and is on its destroyed during a cataclysm. Featuring a swastika prominently displayed on its chest, the statue's phenotype appears to be bearded with Caucasian features and is dressed in Scythian attire. Scythian, incidentally, is acknowledged as being an Aryan tribe from northern Iran that vanished from history in the 5th century.
Nope. Nope, none of that was right. Scythian was first of all, it's Scythian. Second, the term just applied to basically anybody who was part of the nomadic horse-riding tribes of the Eurasian steppe. I mean, this was just the Western version of the Mongols. This was the European version of the Mongols. That is what they were. And you want to know where they were? Not northern Iran. They were an Indo-Aryan people from north of Iran, but they themselves were not in northern Iran. There were people who could be identified as Scythian in northern Iran, but that's about it. Any idea why they disappeared in the 5th century? Any idea what was going on in northern Iran in the 5th century? A little group of people called the White Huns were running through the area. Also, it very explicitly said who this guy was.
This was
Vajravanna. Okay. Founded upon the Hindu deity Kubera, but although the Buddhist and Hindu deities share some characteristics and epithets, each of them has different functions and associated myths. Although brought into East Asia as a Buddhist deity, Vajravanna has become a character in folk religion. All right. So, the figure is from northern India, it looks like. And it's 1,000 years old. Let's see, 1,000 years ago, who was in charge of India? India in 1000 AD. Medieval period would have been these, all right, so probably these guys if we're talking northern India. Instrumental in containing Arab armies. Etymology and origin. Hunas or Huna was the name given by the ancient Indians to a group of Central Asian tribes who entered the Indian subcontinent at the end of the 5th or early 6th century. Okay, that would be the Huns. So this is suggesting that these people would have been probably a fusion of the White Huns and Indians. So you probably would, in fact, have some white people amongst it. But they wouldn't be, like, super ancient white people. They would have come in with the Huns. Yeah, the annoying part is, like, I'm not even woke. I'm not even a woke type of person. I just hate this dude. Yeah, I mean, looking at this, if the guy has white features, it's probably because mixed in with this horde of people were white people. What happens if we look at white Huns? Let's see. Hephthalite with a round, beardless face and slanted almond eyes. So, yeah, all suggestions of these guys is that they were probably not called white because of their skin color. No direct connection with the European Huns. Okay, it's a reconstruction of Attila. Let's see. Tan skin and round and shapeless heads. Small eyes and flat noses. So, yeah, these guys also aren't being described as Caucasian.
Allegedly destroyed during a cataclysm.
Also, I don't know what the hell Atlantis would have to do with any of this. Thank you, I am doing God's work. And yeah, no, all the Tartarian people are just closeted Nazis and Nazi apologists. Every single one of them.
Featuring
at least the important ones.
A swastika prominently displayed on its chest. The statue's phenotype appears to be bearded with Caucasian features and is dressed in Scythian attire. Scythian, incident with Caucasian.
Also, like, calling that Scythian attire is broad. And I don't even know why I'm arguing, because the thing is, it wouldn't be weird. With the current understanding of history, it would not be weird. It also doesn't mean that this is some sort of ancient pre-brown deity. Like, come on, man.
Asian features and is dressed in Scythian attire. Scythian, incidentally, is acknowledged as being an Aryan tribe from northern Iran that vanished from history in the 5th century. It's from
Again, didn't vanish from history. We know what happened.
From this region of northern Iran near Turkey and sites like Göbekli Tepe that the ancient Aryans described that vanished from history in the 5th century. It's from this region of northern Iran near Turkey and sites like Göbekli Tepe that the ancient Aryans described in the scientific journal Nature Communications as blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned migrants that introduced the Chalcolithic or Copper Age to the Levant 6,500 years ago.
Be around 4,500 BC. Waves of migration from Anatolia and the Zagros Mountains. Okay, so here's the issue. This is the Yamnayas. Obviously, this is the Yamnayas. I am...
By sequencing DNA from the distant
Where does this come from, first of all?
past, archaeologists have 100 years that indications that the ancient Aryans described
DNA analysis of 6,500-year-old human remains with blue eyes. Reveal migration from ancient Turkey and Iran. All right, let's discuss here really quick. Let's go to maps.google.com. Tartaria, Flat Earther's least favorite site. Please explain to me how this map is constantly correct if the world is flat. You can't. All right, let's take a look. Ready? This is the area they're talking about, right? Northern Iran and Turkey. This is where the Yamnaya culture comes from, right here. This is the Yamnayas. They go this way, and they go this way. You know what wouldn't be surprising? If some of them went this way. You know? Let's see. When was the Yamnaya migration? About 5,000. Okay, so I was early, or I was late. I was going with, I always do this. It's 3,000 BC, and I always think 3,000 years ago. But yeah, 3,000 BC. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's look. This is the one of them heading all over the place. The idea that at a certain point, 6,500 years ago or so, and this could have been early, the migration could have been earlier than we currently think, by the way. That's what that suggests. Not that our entire understanding of history is wrong, but that we just have the date being too late. But yeah, a bunch of people from here probably were making their way down here. Might even have been trading. What's the DNA study? DNA analysis of 6,500-year-old remains. All right. 6,500-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed remains in Israel. Anomalous blue-eyed people came to Israel 6,500 years ago from Iran. Cool. They mapped the genomes of bones from 22 of 600 individual skeletons. Late Copper Age culture, which have few stylistic links. Which means that this was probably, all right. Let's look at Yamnaya. Pottery. Do they match? You guys notice anything? You guys noticing anything about these two designs? They look similar, perhaps? Maybe a design that matches on both? I mean, this is before the Jews even would have been there. Like, this is a solid 2,500 years before Abraham. Just means that there was a Indo-European population living in the Levant. Echo Warrior said, would you ever invite the Tartarian idiots on the show? Yeah, actually. I've said on multiple occasions, I am happy to debate anybody on this topic.
In the scientific journal Nature Communications as blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned migrants that introduced the Chalcolithic or Copper Age to the Levant.
Helped develop. That means they were part of the late Copper Age culture. I mean, so here, let's go take a look. Copper Age. Roughly 3,500 to 2,300 BC. So we're talking early Copper Age, not late. All this means is that there was a population there that was doing Copper Age stuff. It doesn't mean they introduced the Copper Age to the region. The region had been inhabited for a very long time.
6,500 years ago. By sequencing DNA from the distant past, archaeologists have discovered that thousands of years ago, in what is now northern Israel, waves of migrating people from the north and east, what is now present-day Iran, Armenia, and Turkey, arrived in the region, not only bringing with them new cultural practices, they also introduced new genes, including those responsible for blue eyes, which are reflected in the ancient statues of early Mesopotamian cultures, such as the...
He says all of this like it's hidden history, that the people who inhabited northern Iran were white. We've known this for a very long time.
Sumerians and Babylonians. The DNA retrieved from more than 600 bodies, dating back approximately...
No, the DNA retrieved from 22 bodies out of 600. See, it's... I'm not sure if he's lying intentionally or if he just doesn't know how to read. Both are equally possible.
6,500 years ago makes this one of the largest genetic studies of ancient DNA in the Near East.
That's not true.
And concluded that the gene responsible for blue eyes was associated with 49% of the sampled remains.
Okay, so the gene associated with blue eyes was associated with 11 people. 11 people.
Suggesting that blue eyes had become common in people living in Upper Galilee, a widespread
No, suggesting that blue eyes had become common amongst a segment of a population living in Galilee. There were 600 skeletons. That does not mean everyone in Galilee had blue eyes. That means that there was a group living in Galilee where half the population had blue eyes. That's all that means. I mean, this just stems from complete and total ignorance of prehistoric culture and the way that different groups existed and survived and were connected with one another. It's just, I mean, we're talking about a time when you'd have isolated villages that did not interact with each other.
phenotype in the ancient Middle East, as well
Again, this does not mean everyone was white.
as fair skin and blonde hair, which in modern times has become very rare. Of course, this speaks to why the most ancient depiction
Oh no, I'm banned from the Tartaria subreddit. I poked too many holes, so they banned me. Jacket, who's been a member for 3 months, thank you. Hayden, have you heard of the Colonial Parkway murders from Virginia? I can take a look. I hadn't heard of those.
of Jews are always portrayed as resembling modern Europeans, and why this ancient depiction has become very rare. Of course, this speaks to why the most ancient depictions of Jews are always portrayed as resembling modern Europeans.
Nope. No, they're not. I mean, people wrote what they were familiar with. The European artists drawing this stuff had never been to the Middle East. They had probably never seen a Middle Eastern Jewish person. All of their experience with Jews was with Ashkenazim. So they drew them as white.
And why, despite pushback from federally funded universities which prefer to push an Afrocentric narrative, early depictions of Jesus Christ, if he actually existed, faithfully depict him with the accurate phenotype of the ancient Middle East, with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Nope. Yet again, no. Early depictions of Jesus Christ do not depict him as being, like, Northern European at all. Not even a little bit. This is the same thing that I've been saying, where they're constantly trying to drive this narrative that the ancient Jews were actually white people and modern Jews are somehow a usurping group. It's all just neo-Nazi bullshit, and that is all any of this will ever be. I mean, I defy somebody to present me a Tartaria narrative that doesn't end in anti-Semitism. That's all it ever is, and I'm just sick of it. I mean, I'm not even Jewish, man. I'm just a historian who cares about the truth. I just don't even know where to start, but maybe we'll come back to this. I'm gonna try and do some more research on it and really tear this apart. Maybe we'll come back and we'll do another Tartaria video on the main channel. Unfortunately, they didn't do too well last time, but yeah. So because it's a reaction stream, and if I do this for another hour, I will want to end my life. I'm not going to. So we're gonna end tonight's stream here, and I will be back tomorrow evening for, guess what? More Lethal Company. We have fixed the mod pack, so it no longer spawns monsters everywhere, but it does have more of them. There's more variety, and so I'm excited to get back into that one. Unfortunately, I think we need to start completely over from the very beginning on day one, because I think we lost our big save file. So we'll see. We will see how that develops. Hoping to have a nice big squad for it. I will begin putting that together tomorrow morning. And yeah, thank you guys for hanging out and watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.